device. Now, for example, when you wish to talk about a networking device, if I assume I'm saying I have a SIM card, right? And I have a proper balance into that SIM card. Also, I have taken a proper that card from some service provider. But if I do not have a mobile device, then I will not be able to initiate my calls, messages, or any other operations that my mobile gives. That means if we talk about a device, that is compulsory, because when we want to initiate the communication, we need some kind of devices. So on the basis of that, whenever we are talking about networks, we also need something called as networking devices, right? So these are also called as inter-networking devices. So in today's lecture, first we will see quickly what is networking device, how do they work, and then we will start with logical addressing. Now, there are different number of networking devices. First, switches, routers, and gateways. Now, why we have so many inter-networking devices? It is because some devices connects our devices with different number of devices, and some devices are basically used to connect a network to network device. For example, when you talk about a router, it gets connected to your different devices, maybe laptop, maybe mobile, and so on. And when you talk about a switch, it basically gives you a connecting point for connecting over the, let us say, switch is basically giving you the connectivity over the router. So router is a device, switch is also a device. So this is called as device to device connectivity, network to network connectivity. When you talk about a router is connected to different devices, that means you are connecting a device with different another devices. So every device is having its own purpose. Every device is having its own, you can say, capacity, and accordingly, these internetworking devices will work for us, right? So whenever we talk about internetworking device, it is basically hubs, repeaters, bridges, switches, routers, and gateways. Now let me explain all these with the help of diagram. Now when you talk about hub is basically the first device which normally comes as an internetworking device. Let us say, if I'm saying I have a device which is a hub device. A hub is an internetworking device which has different number of ports. Okay. Assume I have different number of machines, machine 1, machine 2, and machine 3. And let us say this is A machine, B machine, and C machine. And when you talk about this hub, it gives a port which is connected over the network. Now, when you talk about a hub device, it is basically having some ports, and these ports are limited. That is first point. Also, suppose I have a machine A, I have machine B, I have a machine C. Assume machine A wish to send message 1 to machine C. Okay. Now, if this is the requirement, I will just take this. I'll need this one more time later on. Okay. Everyone, hope you remember, this is nothing but called as a packet. If A wish to send a packet to C, this will go over here to the hub device. What your hub device will do, this hub device is a non-intelligent device which will transmit this to B, this will transmit to its C. The hub transmits the data in the form of electrical signals. It do not understand who is the destination. It just tries to transmit the data in the form of packets, whoever is connected over a network. Now B will try to listen to this. B will observe, do I have a destination address as C? No, B will reject it. C will observe, do I have a destination address as C? Yes, this will be accepted by this. One more time, if A wants to send the data to C, again, this will be transmitted over here, this will be transmitted over here. Again, B will reject it and C will accept it. This is how your hub devices works with each other. And when you talk about hub, it is a non-intelligent device. It transmits the data in the form of electrical signals. This is a hub device. Now, since we have very limited number of ports, that's why we avoid hub. Second, if you talk about hub, in that case, can I say B को भी यहाँ पे processing करना पड़ रहा है? Can I say like this, everyone? Yes, that's why we generally do not go for hub. Okay, so let us assume any example of hub. It's just a device, Durgesh. जैसे आप मोबाइल बोलते हो, you have Samsung मोबाइल, you have LG मोबाइल, you have Android मोबाइल, iPhone, you have OnePlus, तो ये सारे अलग अलग डिवाइसेस है. अलग अलग डिवाइसेस का रिक्वायरमेंट अलग अलग रहता है, and that is basically your networking devices are same. Hub is basically used to connect over the network. Through this device, you are able to connect over the network. ये twisted pair wires रहेगी जो हमें यहाँ पे connectivity देगी, right? Now, suppose I have one more machine. Maybe I'm just giving a name, this as A1, this as B1, this as C1. I will say this is my network number 2 and this is my network number 1. Now, this I'll name it as N1, which is network 1, in which I have number of machines. This is my network 2, which is again having 3 different machines. Suppose A wish to send a data. A wish to send a message. Let us say that is M1 message or M2 message. A wish to send a message to C1 machine. Now, what will happen in this scenario? A will try to see that I want to transmit a message. This will get transmitted to B because they are connected over the hub. This will get transmitted over the here. Yes. Now, this will go over the network. Maybe it will be transmitted to this hub. This hub will again transmit the details to this machine, and to this machine. Means, can you imagine if I'm using a hub device, every device have to process this. Everyone will process it. This will reject, and this will accept. This is called as a hub device. So, if I say I wish to connect over the two networks in between, the device which I need is called as repeater. So what is repeater? Repeater will try to regenerate the signal when it travels from one network to another network. So can I say repeater is a device which used to connect two different networks? Yes. जब मेरा लिमिटेड रेंज 100 मीटर्स का है तो मैं सपोज हब यूज करती हूँ. 100 मीटर से अगर बाहर मुझे नेटवर्क में जाना है तो आई नीड वन मोर डिवाइस विच विल ट्रांसमिट माय डेटा फ्रॉम वन मशीन टू अनदर मशीन, फ्रॉम सोर्स टू डेस्टिनेशन, विच मे बिलोंग टू अनदर नेटवर्क, and that is basically called as a repeater device. So repeater is also used for regenerating the signal. Have you understood what is hub and what is repeater? Repeater also do not understand what this packet consists of. They do not analyze the packets, right? Analyze the packets means repeater or hub को ये नहीं पता है कि कौन destination है. They just forward the packet into the network, and once it reaches to another hub, then it will basically get transmitted. Have you understood what is the meaning of hub and repeater, everyone? Right. Next, let us say I'm considering the same scenario. Again, I have repeater is basically regenerating of signal. If your signal goes from one location to another location, if the distance is more, to cover up that distance, in between I need a device, that is a repeater device. Okay, Akshay? तो दो networks को connect करने के लिए मुझे repeater लगता है. But when we talk about hub and repeater, hub is basically they are used to make a network or called as LAN. They are non-intelligent. They do not understand the addressing. There can be multi-port repeaters which can be used to connect multiple devices. The hubs cannot filter the network traffic. What I mean by that is, A ने अगर बोला कि मुझे डेटा ट्रांसमिट करना है, वो B को भी मिलेगा, C को भी मिलेगा. Whenever second time if they want to send the data, again it will be transmitted to B, again it will be transmitted to C. So that means the data which travels through the network in different devices, that will be transmitted to all the, you can say, devices who are connected over the network. And if I'm saying it will be transmitted all the devices, तो compulsory मेरा वहां पे उस network पे traffic बढ़ जाएगा. Right? So number of packets will get transmitted to each and every device, whoever is connected over the network. That is a hub device. Next is repeater. As I said, repeater is a device which is basically used to regenerate the signal. The reason is when my hub is connected to three devices, they belong to network one. There was hub two, maybe it was belonging to network two. If I want to make a connectivity between these networks, obviously I need a device who can regenerate my signal, because what is the capacity of hub of network one? Just three devices. But अगर मुझे सच में data transmit करना है, I want to connect network to network, then definitely I will go for repeater. They will just try to regenerate the signal. But when you talk about repeaters में भी हमने ऐसे ही देखा. Let me go to the diagram. We have seen in case of repeater, I'll just open that once more. All right. Now, repeater में भी हमने यही देखा कि अगर A को data send करना है, तो it will also get transmitted to B, also get to C, also to A1, B1, C1. That means every device will receive a request for that packet. It's the job of that device to check the MAC address, to check this address, whether it is belonging to it or not. That is basically called as a repeater. Repeater is also a non-intelligent device. They just ensure data packets should reach to the destination. But how, it basically do not bother about, right? The next device is called as bridge. They operates at the data link layer. अब ये data link layer क्या है मैं आपको थोड़ी देर में बताऊंगी, right? Now, अक्षय, अगर मैं हब की बात करती हूँ तो एक नेटवर्क फॉर्म करने के लिए मैंने ये डिवाइस यूज किया हब. इस नेटवर्क और इस नेटवर्क को कनेक्ट करने के लिए मुझे हब लगेगा क्या? नहीं. दोनों को कनेक्ट करने के लिए मुझे क्या लगेगा? रिपीटर लगेगा. So that's why I said there are some devices which are used to connect with your machines and the hosts or the nodes. There are some devices which are used to make a connectivity between your network to network. I hope you have understood, Akshay. Everyone, have you understood what is hub and what is repeater? Right. Now, consider the same scenario now. I have a network 1, right? And in this scenario, I say similar kind of network I have one more time. In this case, message 1 is transmitted from A to C. So I am in this location where the data will traverse from A to hub. Hub will transmit it to B. Data will traverse from this to this. Hub will transmit it to B. But suppose this is my network 1 and assume this is my network 2. One more time, if I wish to join these two networks, then I can use a device which is called as bridge device. It acts as a bridge between these two, right? Now, when you talk about bridge, hub के यहाँ पे ports मैंने 3 बनाए हैं. There are different hub के ports available. There are 4 ports, there are 16 ports, there are 8 ports, but they are limited. Now, let us continue to the bridge now. Suppose I wish to send a message M2 from A to, let us say, C1, right? Let me just write, this is my machine number A1, this is my B1, and let us say this is my C1. A wish to send a message to C1. In this case, the message will get transmitted from A to hub. Hub will transmit over here. Hub will also transmit over here. Hub will transmit over here to the bridge. This will take it over here. This will take over here. This will take over here. But before moving ahead, what does this bridge will do? Bridge will maintain a table. Bridge will maintain a table. What is that table is called? That table is called as routing table. So what this bridge will do? Bridge will say, A, what is the source? What is the destination? What is the source IP address? What is the destination IP address? And so on. अब source क्या था? A था. A का IP क्या है? Let us say A IP. Who is the destination? C1. What is its IP? Let us say C1 of IP. This table is maintained by the bridge along with more information. I'm just maintaining few. So now suppose at the first time everyone will receive, this will reject, this will reject, this will reject, this will reject, this will accept. Next time when I'm saying C wants to send the acknowledgement, so acknowledgement C1 से मुझे A को भेजना है. So how it will work? This message will get transmitted from C to this hub. This hub is definitely going to do the same task. It's going to divide it. But when it travels from one network to another, bridge will observe, do I have an entry for A in my routing table? Yes. So bridge will just transmit it to A. Have you understood the meaning of this? It means यहाँ पे मैंने थोड़ा सा कंट्रोल किया क्या ब्रॉडकास्टिंग को? Yes. Also, when the bridge have received the acknowledgement for C1, bridge will also maintain its routing table. I have a source as C1, I have its IP as this, I have a destination like this, I have a IP as this. So next time जब A और C के बीच में communication करना है तो B, C, A1, B1 picture में नहीं आएंगे. So that is the advantage of bridge device. It is little more intelligent than your hub and the repeater. Have you understood what does a bridge means? All right. So bridge is another networking device when it tries to basically analyze the incoming packet and then it forwards based on the addressing information. Bridge works best when the traffic from one segment to another segment is not too great. मतलब bridge भी ऐसा device है जो limited network में communication करना है, it is okay for us. But if the number of devices are more, if the data transmission rate is more, if the traffic between the network segment is more, then bridge can also fail. So what is the solution for that? Solution is switch. I hope you all have understood, you all have heard at least the meaning of what is switch. Right? So when you talk about switch, switch is basically operates at data link layer 2. What is that layer 2? We will see today. Switch is a device which is used to segment the network into sub-network, which is called as subnets. आपको पता है क्या आपके when you take any service provider, in that case they have a switch kept maybe on the terrace. They keep a one port and that port में से वो twisted pair wire आती है. That twisted pair wire comes to your router, right? And that router is able to connect to your machines. नेक्स्ट कस्टमर आया, नेक्स्ट कस्टमर को वो नया पोर्ट दे देगा, उस पोर्ट में से नेक्स्ट ट्विस्टेड पेयर वायर आएगी एंड देन इट विल means can I say switch is also a networking device which is used to form or which is used to connect two networks together. Your router is having its own network, a switch is itself a network, making a networking communication. Right now when I say a switch, switch is basically used nowadays. The reason is switch is having multiple or you can say unlimited number of ports. अगर मेरे पास 10 कस्टमर्स है तो मे बी आई विल गो फॉर अ स्विच व्हिच इज हैविंग 16 पोर्ट्स. अगर मेरे पास ज्यादा कस्टमर्स आ गए तो आई विल टेक अ स्विच व्हिच इज हैविंग मल्टीपल पोर्ट्स, राइट? सो दैट इज बेसिकली कॉल्ड एज स्विच. So switch can also interpret address information. मतलब switch में जो पोर्ट है वो आपके राउटर के साथ कनेक्टेड है. That means it is aware about which router it is accessing. Means it is aware about the address which is given to your router. आर यू गेटिंग? तो जो आपको आईपी एड्रेस अलोकेट करता है आपका सर्विस प्रोवाइडर, वो उस बेस पे करता है कि ये पोर्ट के साथ ये पर्सन का राउटर कनेक्टेड है, लेट मी अलोकेट वन एड्रेस. सेकंड पोर्ट सेकंड राउटर, थर्ड पोर्ट थर्ड राउटर, राइट? नाउ व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट स्विच, in that case switch will basically try to We use switch when the traffic becomes more. It is giving us better performance than hub. Switch will also maintain a table for your devices, right? So what does the switch do? Switch will just understand your addresses and forward the respective machine. For example, if you say my switch is connected to my router, the router is connected to, let us say, with at my home. Second time, when the next person comes, at that moment, that next port will be given to the next person. So that is how your switch is used. Switches are also called as multi-port bridges. The reason is bridges have limited ports called as 16 ports, but switches, they have unlimited ports, right? Yes, Haniraj, in your case, for example, when I'm talking about bridge, जब यहां से यहां पे डेटा जाएगा तो ब्रिज एंड हब दोनों कनेक्टेड है तो इन दैट केस दिस डिवाइस विल दिस पैकेट मे बी योर C1 पैकेट will get transmitted to B and C as well, but at least it can limit the broadcasting. सपोज आपके पास एक ही डिवाइस है, इफ यू हैव अ ब्रिज, राइट, दैट ब्रिज विल बी कनेक्टेड ओवर द डिफरेंट डिफरेंट नेटवर्क्स. अब सपोज अभी ब्रिज ने क्या किया, ब्रिज ने आपके इस पर्टिकुलर हब का भी मेंटेनेंस मैक एड्रेस रखा, ब्रिज ने इस पर्टिकुलर का भी मैक एड्रेस रख दिया. नाउ व्हेन द पैकेट विल कम, ब्रिज सिर्फ इन मशीन्स का नहीं रखेगा, हब को भी तो एक एड्रेस रहेगा ना. सपोज कहां से डेटा आया, C1 से A के पास आया, तो ब्रिज क्या करेगा, सिर्फ इसी नेटवर्क में फॉरवर्ड करेगा, वो दूसरे नेटवर्क में नहीं फॉरवर्ड करेगा. I hope you are getting the things now. Are you getting? ये हब है, हब का भी IP एड्रेस रहेगा, मैक एड्रेस रहेगा. ये हब है, इसका भी IP and MAC एड्रेस रहेगा. That IP address or MAC address will be maintained into this routing table only. So bridge will maintain, okay, this came from network 1, maybe N1. This came from network 2, maybe N2. Accordingly, your bridge will transmit the data. It is not necessary कि bridge ने अब दो networks को ही connect किया है. There can be multiple number of networks which can be connected through the bridge. It's just one example. I hope you have understood now how your bridge can perform little more effectively. Yes, it will limit the networks. Absolutely correct, Tushar. Right? Now, let us understand the next topic, which is called as router. Now, everyone is aware about what is router. It is basically used to build the LAN. They are basically used for connecting multiple networks and route the packets. Now, suppose I'm saying I have a router. Now, my router is having a capacity of 5 machines, let us say, or 6 devices. Whenever, for the first time, I connect my laptop, then it asks me a password. Do you agree with this, everyone? Yes. Next time when I connect, will it ask me the password? No. Okay. When I connect to mobile 1, maybe I connect to laptop 2, maybe I connect to mobile 2, maybe I connect to, let us say, iPad and so on, right? One of my friend comes and this is basically, I give her a password and she will just put that a password and this IP address is given to it. So what does the router do? Router gives a IP address to the devices every time, and which is maintained inside a routing table. That's the reason whenever you connect your device to the router, you do not have to give the password and connectivity every time, because it is maintained already in the routing table of your router. Your router knows that this is a laptop, this is mobile, and so on. When the next time your friend visits, right, at that moment, अगर उसने forgot password नहीं किया रहता तो वो automatically connect हो जाते हैं. Yes or no? It is because my router is having the information of this device, and my router have allocated this IP to my friend's laptop or maybe mobile or something like that. That is why we say a routing table is maintained at the router. Have you understood, everyone? जब आप router reset करते हो, so what happens? This routing table gets emptied, right? And that's the reason it may ask you for the next time as a password. So router is basically a device which is used to connect multiple devices and used for home networks. They use logical addressing. Logical addressing means it will give you an IP address. IP is called as logical addressing. Now, do you remember yesterday I have explained the concept of switching? What is switching? Finding the best path, right? Switching means finding the best path. When you talk about finding the best path, that is called as switching. तो ये कौन करता है? Router करता है. By finding the best route is the job of your router. So switching, I have taught you yesterday, but who does that? Networking devices do that. Network to network transmit में भी जब switching लगेगा, in that case, that can be done called as switching and then routing. Switching means finding the best possible path. Routing means trying to send the message to the correct destination address. That is a job of your routers, right? Right. Durgesh, sometimes if you say auto reconnect, then you will not, it may never ask you for the password. But if you try to connect any new device to the router, definitely it will ask you, right? Definitely it will ask you for a password, right? It is because router has to keep information it's in its routing table. That is what is basically a router is, right? Now, when I say router performs switching, when I say router gives you basically IP addresses to your devices, right? And when you say these all are basically called as different tasks which are done by your router. But when you talk about these tasks, for them, we need some kind of protocols. Protocols are also called as rules. Protocols are also called as rules. Now, in your exam, sometimes the questions are asked, what is RIP, routing information protocol? What is OSPF? It is open shortest path first. What is EIGRP? It is enhanced interior gateway routing protocol. What is BGP? It is border gateway protocol. So all these are the protocols when you talk about routers. Router uses different protocols, different standards, and that is basically provided because we want to maintain some information. We want to pass the data from one network to another, and that is what is a router is, right? So router determines the best path. मैं बोलती हूँ best path select करता है, means switching use करता है through some route, through some protocols. So what are the protocols? These are the protocols. So once the question was asked, OSPF is which type of protocol? Answer is it is a routing protocol. OSPF stands for open shortest path first. अब ये जितने सारे protocols है, there are thousands of protocols in the network. Every protocol is having its own format. Every protocol is having its own working style. But you do not have to worry about in detail about the different protocols. But at least you should aware about the namings of protocols. For example, if I'm talking about routers, for routing the packets to the correct destination, we have different protocols. That is called as routers. Now, when you talk about gateways, right? For example, I am connected to my router. You are connected maybe over the mobile. You are connected maybe over the LAN, right? Someone may be connected over the wired media, or someone may over connected the wireless media. Also, there is a possibility, obviously that is a possibility, I may use different networking speed. You may use different networking speed also. Along with that, you may use a LAN connectivity. I may use a WAN connectivity. Or you can say, I may use any type of connectivity, right? That is basically, maybe I'm using fiber optics, you are using twisted pair, or I'm using twisted pair, you are using fiber optics. So there can be any combination of networks that are available and that are used by different people. But then also we are connected. It is because in between, I have something called as gateways. So what are the gateways? They are the devices that connects dissimilar network. Obviously, everyone in the whole world cannot have a same kind of a network. Everyone have a dissimilar kind of network, but still we are able to connect with each other. It is because there comes a gateways. They operate at the highest level of abstraction. ये हमें नहीं पता है कि gateway कैसे work करते हैं internally, but they are the devices which helps us to connect the local network towards the external network. Have you understood the different number of internetworking devices, why we use hub? If I have very smaller network, 3 to 4 device, you can go for hub. If I have 6 machines where I can, or 8 machines, I can form one network with 4, another network with 4, I can connect with using repeater. But if I have more than that device, I may go for bridge too. Bridge is also an intelligent device which can go for, you can say by keeping a routing table, it can do some intelligent decisions. But still, if I have a very large network, I will avoid bridge, I will go to switch, because bridge is having only 16 ports, that is the limited ports. If I have more than 16 machines to be connected, I will go for switch. Switch is generally used, and this switch is basically used whenever I want to go for a larger networks. Switch is a networking device which connect network to network. Router is a device which is used for home purpose. It have a capacity to connect to multiple devices which are at personal use. Gateways are the devices which are at the highest level of abstraction. Gateways हमें ये नहीं बताते हैं कि गेटवे से हमें ये नहीं पता चलता है कि हम कौन सा नेटवर्क है और क्या नेटवर्क है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आई एम नॉट अवेयर अबाउट विच टाइप ऑफ नेटवर्क यू आर यूजिंग, बट स्टिल you are and I am, we both are connected with each other, right? So that is basically called as gateways, right? It's our highest level of abstraction. When I wish to connect this similar kind of network, then there comes a gateway. समझ में आया what is gateways, everyone? Good. So this was about the basics of, you can say, how subnet attached to a switch over the network. That is basically a concept called as sub networks. You do not have that in much detail, but I will give you an answer over here, Shrikant, after covering IP address. Right? Real time example, Pawan, जब आप suppose you do some online shopping, right? तो आप payment gateway पे जाते हो. That is more secure. Have you ever observed a gateway? It redirects you to the payment gateway. That is one kind of a gateway. Are you getting? Right. Good. So we have seen few internetworking devices, right? So networking devices are basically used when you wish to connect over the network. तो अब तक हमने क्या देखा? हमने देखा कि कोई भी फिजिकल डिवाइसेस है और हमने वो फिजिकल डिवाइसेस क्या रहते हैं, लैन क्या है, व्हाट इज मैन, व्हाट इज वैन, व्हाट आर द ट्रांसमिशन मीडियाज, व्हाट आर द फिजिकल रिक्वायरमेंट फॉर फॉर्मेशन ऑफ नेटवर्क, व्हाट आर द टोपोलॉजीज, हाउ वी कैन फॉर्म अ नेटवर्क यूजिंग physically you can say wire connectivity and so on, right? Now suppose I have got a requirement, I want to connect 10 machines in and I want to form a small network. In that case, suppose I have got my 10 machines. Obviously 10 machines hai, so I may go for a twisted pair. Obviously I have 10 machines, so I may connect over the router and I may take a connection from some service provider which will provide me a route from the switch, and maybe I will form a LAN network. This is my requirement which is fulfilled now. But if I'm saying 10 machines, automatically अगर मैंने twisted pair connect कर दिया तो automatically network connect होगा क्या? Answer is no. I need something which is called as IP address, right? IP address is called as logical address, which is given to me as far as machine is concerned. Every machine is having one physical address. Can you please name me the name, another name of physical address? MAC address. And can you please tell me where it is printed? Where it is printed? It is printed on an IC card. Very good. Now, when I say a machine which is printed on NIC card, right? Now, let me go over here. Physical addressing. It is the physical or you can say addressing. There are 4 categories of addresses. One is physical address that we have seen, which is also called as link address, Ethernet address, MAC address, and IP NIC address, which is of 48-bit. Next comes as a logical addressing. Logical addressing is of 32-bit. It is called as IP addresses. Why do we have logical addressing? Because we want our host to be connected over the internet. When you talk about specific addressing, what are specific addresses? Port address and specific address. Let me explain. Suppose, have you heard something called as HTTP? Everyone? Have you heard something called as HTTPS? Yes. Something called as file transfer protocol, FTP. Something called as SSH, which is called as secure shell, and so on. अब ये सारे क्या है? These are actually the ports. आप कोई भी वेबसाइट HTTP से स्टार्ट होती है या HTTPS से स्टार्ट होती है, are you able to directly access that website on your machine? Of course, yes. The reason is, on your system, there are different number of ports which are available. And if you're talking about number of ports which are available, in that case, these ports are given a specific number which is fixed. And these ports are used for performing different operations on your machine. For example, if you talk about HTTP, it's given a port number as 80. So अगर आपका 80 number का port is open. That's why you are able to access HTTP website on your machine. I have secure shell. There is a 20 and 21. A support number uska fixed hai. If that is open, then only you will do the you will be able to do this operation on secure shell, or you can say remote accessation के लिए जब आप screen share करते हो, remote accessation करते हो, files share करते हो, FTP in that case we have some port numbers which are fixed, and those are specific and those are fixed in your machine. Those are called as port addresses. When you talk about port addresses, it's a computer A can communicate with computer C, maybe by using telnetwork, maybe it is used for FTP, whenever maybe it's connected to HTTP, maybe it is connected to HTTPS. All these are called as port addresses, right? Port means port number, and that is fixed, which is given to in every machine. Those are port addresses. When you talk about specific addresses, I'll talk about logical addressing later on. When you talk about specific address, for example, if I say go to google.com, you will say go to google.co.in, you will say okay, yes, I will go. But अगर मैं इसका ही आपको न्यूमेरिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन देती हूँ, प्लीज गो टू साइट नंबर 110.20.1.14, तो आपको क्या ये नंबर याद रहेगा क्या? आपको क्या ये नंबर याद रहेगा? नहीं. So actually, when someone designed the website, that website is having its own IP address, because कोई भी वेबसाइट अगर हम डिप्लॉय करते हैं तो कोई भी मशीन पे हम करते हैं, उस मशीन को IP address रहता है, और we provide some IP address to some every website. But if we give a numeric value to the website, it will be very difficult for human beings to remember those numbers. That's why those IP addresses are given its equivalent names. For example, the IP address for Google is always same. तो आप अगर URL में Google लिखने के बदले Google का IP address भी टाइप करोगे तो भी आपको google.co.in पे ही लेके जाएगा, right? And that is basically called as IP address. IP address को जब मैं human readable form में कुछ equivalent names देती हूँ, for example google.co.in, in that case that is called as specific address. So the URLs that we type, universal resource locator, जो भी हम URLs type करते हैं, हर एक URL को एक specific IP address है. As a human being, it is difficult for me to remember the IP address in the form of numbers. That's why we have given equivalent names to it. And actually, it is nothing but domain name system, which is called as DNS. What is DNS? DNS you can consider as a table format where IP address is given and where its equivalent name is given, right? So domain name याद रखना easy है, but domain का numeric format is difficult to have, right? Yeah, Durgesh, Tushar, it is uniform resource locator. There is a typing mistake, just a typing mistake. It's a uniform resource locator, right? How can we find IP address of a website? You can just Google it. You can just type Durgesh IP address of google.co.in आप सर्च करो और वही IP address आप वापस URL में हिट करोगे तो you will get that same page. Okay, so that is called as specific address. MAC address we have seen in the last class. It is also called as Ethernet address. It is 6 decimal digit, and I hope you remember 6 bytes, out of which 3 bytes are represented as a manufacturer ID. याद है क्या सबको? Right. अगर आपको किसी भी कंपनी का और किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का MAC एड्रेस देखना है तो this is a website where the listing of all the manufacturers and their first 3 bytes are mentioned. And if you really wish to check what is your MAC address, then go to command prompt and type ipconfig/all. It will display your machine's IP address as well as physical address along with many more details. Have you understood, everyone? If you're on Linux, it is ifconfig. If you're on Windows, just hit ipconfig. You will get the IP address and the MAC address. तो अब आपको आपके मशीन का MAC address पता चल जाएगा. उसके first 3 octets आप check करो. You can do the Google and you can see जो भी आपका manufacturer रहेगा लैपटॉप का, उसके 3 octets आपके मशीन के 3 octets के साथ match होंगे. I hope you are understanding what I'm trying to explain. Have you understood? Okay. Now, as we say, we cannot share the IP address. Sorry, we cannot share the MAC address. That's the reason every machine is given one specific address, and that is called as IP address. Now, what is IP address? IP stands for Internet Protocol Address, or it is also called as logical address. The IP address is divided into 4 bytes, which is nothing but 32 bits. Now, I will just first give you the overview and then we will go through the slides. Now, when I say 32 bits, means if I start from 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2, up to, can I say I can go up to 2 raised to 31? इतना बड़ा नंबर हो सकता है IP एड्रेस का, यहाँ तक रेंज आएगी तो, right. Now, if I say, today I am saying I want IP address as 5, right? Tomorrow I will say, no, I do not need IP address as 5, I want IP address as 25. Maybe day after tomorrow, again I'll say, no, I want 5 only. Again, I'll say, no, I want IP address as 15. Will it create a confusion? Obviously, IP conflict hoga machines ka, alag-alag machines ka. True. So, along with that, I cannot even say my IP address is 2 raised to 25. ऐसे भी नहीं बोल सकती इतना बड़ा नंबर का IP address. No, I cannot. There is, when I consider 2 raised to 0 to 2 raised to 31, the range of IP address can go from 2 raised to 0 to 2 raised to 32, which is basically a very big number, which is this, which is more than 4 billion, right? To avoid this, they have divided, they have means there are some organization who maintains the standards. They have divided IP address into 4 different octets. 4 different octets. That's the reason we say this is the first byte, second byte, third byte, and fourth byte. So the IP address is basically divided into 4 octets. Now, first question to all of you, can I say yahan pe total bits are 8 bits, here also 8 bits, here also 8 bits, and here also 8 bits, right? Now, when I talk about 8, 8, 8, and 8, it means that yahan pe, in this scenario, the minimum number will be 0 and maximum number will be 255. Here also, it will be minimum number 0 and maximum number will be 255. Minimum number 0, maximum number 255. Minimum number 0, maximum number 255. Do you all agree with this? Everyone. Means, can I say minimum IP address will start from 0, 0, 0, 0 up to 255, 255, 255, 255. लेकिन अगर मैं ऐसे न्यूमरिक फॉर्मेट में लिखती हूँ तो मुझे सैग्रीगेट करने में डिफिकल्टी होगी. 255 है कि 2552 है कि 552 है, क्या है? That's the reason when I try to represent my IP address in decimal numbers, then we use a dot notation. To separate my first octet from the second octet, we use a dot notation, which is called as decimal dotted notation. Suppose I'm saying I have an IP address, maybe 10.1.0.2, right? Next, if I try to represent 10 in binary, can I say 10 will look like this? Right. Can I say 1 will look like this? Can I say 0 will look like this? And can I say 2 will look like this? Do you all agree? This is first octet, this is second octet, this is third octet, this is fourth octet. Means this is called as dotted decimal notation, and this is called as binary notation. I hope you have understood, everyone. तो जब मैं डॉटेड डेसिमल लिखती हूँ तो आई हैव टू कंपल्सरी राइट डॉट. The reason is, if I just write 10, 1, 0, 2, will you be able to analyze what exactly the first octet and second octet? No. To divide the octets, and if I represent decimal dotted notation, I have to give dot. यहाँ तक समझ में आया हूँ? Everyone. Okay. Next is, when you talk about IP address, it is called as classless address, classful address, or classless. There are 2 categories. IP address is 32-bit address. There is basically a large address space, which is 2 raised to 32. That's why they have divided the IP address into 4 octets. First is this octet, second, third, and fourth, where there is binary notation and decimal dotted notation. In your exam, The question are asked based on check whether these IP addresses are valid or not. Can you please tell me the first IP address is valid or invalid? यहाँ का रेंज 0 to 255, 0 to 255, 0 to 255 and 0 to 255 ऐसे ही होना चाहिए. Can you please tell me whether the A address is first address is valid or invalid? It is invalid. What is the reason? The reason is 045. You cannot combine both. Okay. Second, can you please tell me second wala B address, is it valid or invalid? It is invalid. Why? Because there are 5 octets. Next, can you please tell me 301, is it valid or invalid? It is invalid because a number cannot go from more than 255. Can you tell me this is valid or invalid? This is invalid. It is because we cannot combine both the notations. Either you can go for binary or you can go for dotted decimal. यहाँ तक समझ में आया? This is one type of questions that can be asked. Now, I've included the answers too. A is invalid because 0 नहीं हो सकता है. You can write Arpit 45, not 0. Okay. Now, this diagram you have to remember. When we talk about 32 bits, means 2 raised to 32. It is more than 4 billion. So we need to distribute those. That's why we need classes. There are different classes, A, B, C, D, and E. If I say the maximum range that any octet provides me is from 0 to 255. What the standard organization have given, they have said if you have the first octet 0 to 127, means it is of class A. They have divided into classes. This is class A. Next, if I say I have class B, in that case, it will start from 128. Maximum कहाँ तक जाना चाहिए? 255 तक, right? 128 to 191. This is class B. Next, class C, 192 to 239. That is basically class C, sorry, 223, right? Similarly, class D, 224 to 239, and class E, 240 to 255. This is called as the first octet जो मैंने यहाँ पे बनाया है, ये octet की range 0 to 255 है, उसमें से they have divided this into number of classes, out of which these two are not yet used. We are still using class A, class B, and class C. They are for the future purpose. Now please understand, अगर मैं बोलती हूँ first octet class A का, can I say the minimum address will be 0.0.0 से 127.255.255.255 ऐसे हो सकता है, right? क्लास B के लिए 128.0.0.0 से IP allocate हो सकती है up to 255, 255, 255. क्योंकि first octet is freezed, range is 128 to 191 ऐसे जाएगा. Similarly, this is 192.0.0.0 से 223.255, 255, 255. Are you understanding, everyone? So this is called as, this octet is reserved for determining the class. Now, if I ask you, can you please tell me which class is this IP address? ये कौन से class में आएगा? Class A. Why? It is because 120 is the first octet. So first octet determines the class of that IP address. If I ask you 194.5, 0.6, 0.89, ये कौन सा क्लास है? क्लास C. तो ये रेंज फिक्स है, ये रेंज कभी चेंज नहीं है. If I say 135.4.2.7, अब ये कौन सा क्लास हो गया? क्लास B. So how did you recognize? By observing the first octet. यहाँ तक समझ में आया? ऐसे टाइप का क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं. फर्स्ट बाइट को ऑब्जर्व करने के बाद Whatever is the range, accordingly you can say this belong to class A, this belong to class B, and so on and so forth. This is called as dotted decimal notation. Okay. अब ये इतना difficult numbers है, why they have done so? They would have easily divided 0 to something whole number and so on. The reason behind that is, suppose I'm saying 8 bits means 2 raised to 0 to 2 raised to 7. Do you all agree? Everyone? Correct. This is 1 to 8 4 to 1 format. अगर मैं first consider करती हूँ first row, right? In case of class A, whatever number you calculate from 0 to 127, this bit is always 0. Rest all bits will change, maybe from sometimes 0, sometimes 1. If you consider the range from 128 to 191, these two bits are always reserved 10. Remaining bits may change. If you consider 192 to something, these three bits remains same. Remaining all will change. मतलब आप कोई भी नंबर 224 to 239 के बीच में बाइनरी में कन्वर्ट करोगे तो you will get 1110. These bits will only change. Have you understood? That's the reason they have divided the range like this. Is it okay? So, can I conclude? Can I also conclude if the first octet is starting with a 0, 100%, it is class A? Right? If the first octet starting with 10, it is 100% class B. What I'm trying to say is 128 to 191 के बीच में कोई भी नंबर को आप बाइनरी में कन्वर्ट करोगे तो वो नंबर में ये दोनों बिट्स फिक्स 10 ही आएगी, 100% श्योर. रिमेनिंग बिट्स विल चेंज. जैसे 128 किया तो 10000000 आया, 129 100001 आया, 130 1000 and again 10 and so on. 191 किया 100 some 1111 सब आएगा, राइट? बट 192 किया तो यहाँ पे बिट में चेंज आ जाएगा. आई होप यू हैव अंडरस्टूड नाउ एवरीवन. हैव यू अंडरस्टूड? राइट. Now, in this case also, if you talk about 1110, कोई भी एड्रेस को if I try to represent it in binary, then it will be class B. Did you get it? IP एड्रेस में क्लास अगर रेंज के हिसाब से दिया हुआ है तो आप बोलोगे ओके दिस इज क्लास A, दिस इज क्लास B, दिस इज C, दिस इज D, दिस इज E, right? This you need to remember anyhow, Aniruddha. Okay, right. Have you understood? You have to write it in binary. अश्विनी, अगर आप बाइनरी में कन्वर्ट करोगे तो मैं बात करती हूँ. Have you understood? Everyone, shall I proceed? So, when you talk about class A, class B, class C, D and E, in this case, अगर मैं बाइनरी नोटेशन बोलती हूँ, पहला बिट will remain 0. बाइनरी नोटेशन में this will remain 10, this will remain 110, fix up to 223. This will remain 1110 and this will remain 1111. So if I ask you, if I represent any IP address in decimal format, then will you be able to represent what is its class name? Yes, because range को देख के आप decide कर सकते हो. If I ask you, if my binary address is starting with 110, can you please tell me the class of that IP address? Class C. If it is 1110, it is class D. 10, it is class B. आया समझ में identification कैसे करना है? These types of questions are asked. Can you please tell me class of the first address? A, class of the second address. C, class of the third address. A, 252. E. Have you understood? How did we recognize? Everyone. Good. This is called as basically a IP addressing. Now, when you talk about IP addressing, in that case, there are few things which remains constant. For example, 127 dot any IP address is always fixed, which is called as universal IP, which is by default configured. It is also called as loopback series. Sometimes what happens, we need to check some sometimes we need to check some kind of you can say self testing for the machine, whether my machine is getting connected over the network, or is my network card is fine, is everything is working fine. In that case, we can go for ping command and we can type 127.0.0.1. It is called as self testing IP address. It is also called as universal IP. जब हम IP address allocate करते हैं, at that moment you cannot allocate the IP address 127.0.0.1. You have to compulsory remember that this is called as loop back series, which is already configured on your machine. Have you understood up to this point, everyone? Yes or no, everyone? Yes. Now question comes to you. Let us say this is a switch. My service provider have given me one port address to my router. This is a router. This router is connected with different number of machines, right? Router क्या करता है, मेरे machine को IP address देगा. This is also giving me IP address. This will give IP address to my laptop. This will give IP address to mobile. बट सर्विस प्रोवाइडर की तरफ से राउटर को कितने आईपी एड्रेस मिलते हैं? ओनली वन आईपी एड्रेस. हाउ माय राउटर इज गिविंग मी दिस आईपी एड्रेसेस? एनी गेस? एक आईपी एड्रेस में वो 4 में कैसे डिवाइड कर रहा है? आर यू अंडरस्टैंडिंग दिस सिनेरियो? माय राउटर इज असाइन्ड विद वन आईपी एड्रेस, but my router is providing me number of devices to be connected, and when I say number of devices are to be connected to हर एक device को I have to give IP address, right? So there is a range of private IP addresses. So what are private IP addresses? These are the IP addresses which are used for private networks. And who uses that? Router uses that. The reason is router आपका सर्विस प्रोवाइडर का खुद का IP एड्रेस नहीं असाइन करता है आपके मशीन को. Router assigns private IP address to your machines. So there is one organization which is Inter-Associated Number Association called as INA, which manages private IP addresses. Right? Now, can I say any IP address which starts from 0 to 127? तो ये कौन से क्लास का रेंज हुआ है? क्लास A का. Very good. Can I say this particular IP address? I'll just paste it. जो ये वाला IP address है, this particular IP address comes within the range of class A. क्या ये मेरे क्लास A के रेंज में ही आ रहा है? Yes. Every class is having its own reserved IP addresses. And this is decided by an INA, which is an organization. This reserved IP address is called as private IP address. Did you understand what I'm trying to explain? For example, if I'm saying I have roll numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, out of which I'm saying, or I have, let us say, 9 benches, out of which I'm saying, please reserve 2 and 3 bench. Rest all you can use. So I will say these are the private IP address, and rest all are which IP addresses? Public IP address. Public IP address, ये भी हुआ public, and so on and so forth. समझ में आया? Every class is having a public IP address as well as private IP address. If I ask you, can you please tell me, let us say 12.34.21.67, which class it belongs to? Class A. कैसे पता चला? 12 से पता चला. ठीक. Now next question is, it's not negative, it's positive. It's a range 2. This to this. ठीक है? Now, can you please tell me, is it a public IP address or a private IP address? Public IP address. Good. Next question. If I ask you, Can you please tell me 10.34.26.443? Can you please tell me which class it belongs to? Class A. Is it a private or public? It's a private IP address. मतलब अगर मैं क्लास A के नेटवर्क में हूं, right? If I am in class A network, my service provider will be able to give me this IP range to this IP range. And if I'm using a class A network, my router will give me the IP address range from this to this. Are you getting the difference between public and private IP addresses? Kind of reserved seats जैसे रहते हैं. So this is public and private IP address. Have you understood? For example, let us take class B. Class B का range क्या है? 128.0.0.0 से to 191.255.255.255. ये मेरा class B का range है, right? But class B में, if I say class B, private IP addresses range is fixed, which is this one. Okay, ये इसी range में आता है. ये इसी range में आता है. ऋषिकेश, I'm taking the next example for your understanding. ये इसी रेंज में आएगा. डू यू ऑल अग्री? 172 इसी के बीच में आएगा ना, 128 और 191 के बीच में. करेक्ट. प्लीज फोकस केयरफुली एंड लेट मी नो. इफ आई आस्क यू, कैन यू प्लीज टेल मी 130.45.2.7 ये कौन से क्लास का आईपी एड्रेस है? 130 क्लास बी. कैन यू प्लीज टेल मी, इज इट पब्लिक और प्राइवेट? इट्स ऑब्वियसली अ पब्लिक एड्रेस. पब्लिक एड्रेस है ना. 130 की रेंज है, राइट? नाउ इफ आई आस्क यू 172.17.15.30, अब ये कौन सी क्लास की एड्रेस है? इट इज क्लास बी. बट कौन सी एड्रेस है, पब्लिक की प्राइवेट? इट इज ऑब्वियसली प्राइवेट बिकॉज दैट रेंज, दैट बैंड इज फिक्स्ड. हैव यू अंडरस्टूड? तो अगर मैं क्लास बी के नेटवर्क में हूं, मैं मेरे सर्विस प्रोवाइडर को बोलती हूँ कि मुझे क्लास बी का नेटवर्क चाहिए, then my service provider will be able to give me the range from 128.0.0.0 से कोई भी IP एड्रेस जो उसके पास अवेलेबल रहेगी 191, 255, 255, 255 में से देगा. बट इन बिटवीन 172.16 वाला जो रेंज है वो मुझे नहीं दे सकता, बिकॉज ये कौन कॉन्फ़िगर करता है? ये प्राइवेट IP एड्रेस राउटर कॉन्फ़िगर करके देगा. आप समझ में आया? That's what is the difference, Akshay. I've repeated thrice the difference between private and public. Now, if I ask you, can you please tell me this 172, it is belonging to class B. Is it a public or private IP address? It is of course a public because 172.16 से 31 तक यही range fix है. It's before 16. I hope you have understood now. तो हर एक क्लास Okay, now I'll give you the easiest way. Suppose मैं आपको बोलती हूँ कि I have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6, let us say 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. Suppose मैं आपको बोलती हूँ I have a range of 10 numbers. ठीक है? I am saying you can select any number from 1 to 10, provided please do not go for number 5 and number 6 because it is reserved for me. These are the private numbers. तो आप मुझे क्या बोलोगे कि ओके मैम आई विल गो फॉर 4, लेट अस से. तो अब ये 4 क्या हो गया? ये पब्लिक हो गया. एंड अगर मैं बोलती हूँ 5 तो ये क्या हो गया? प्राइवेट, बिकॉज इट इज रिजर्व्ड. आर यू गेटिंग? अब समझ में आया एवरीवन? इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल एग्जांपल. करेक्ट. सिमिलरली अगर मैं आपको बोलती हूँ कि मेरे क्लास बी का रेंज यहाँ पे मैंने 1 to 10 दिया है, यहाँ पे 128 से 191 तक है. आर यू गेटिंग? इसके बीच में जैसे 5 and 6 मेरा रिजर्व था, यहाँ पे रिजर्वेशन किसका किया हुआ है? 172 से यहाँ तक का. दिस इज फिक्स्ड प्राइवेट आईपी एड्रेस. आर यू गेटिंग एवरीवन? अब सुनो. अब देयर आर 2 पॉसिबिलिटीज. फर्स्ट पॉसिबिलिटी इज मेरा सर्विस प्रोवाइडर मुझे एक आईपी एड्रेस देगा. हनीराज लिसन, डू नॉट पोज द सेम क्वेश्चन अगेन. अगर मेरा सर्विस प्रोवाइडर मुझे एक आईपी एड्रेस देगा तो 1 आईपी एड्रेस देगा. डू यू अग्री एवरीवन? यस, तो वो कहाँ के रेंज में से देगा? वो पब्लिक आईपी एड्रेसेस में से देगा। अब समझ में आया? इट्स नॉट मिडिल लेवल, इट्स जस्ट अ रैंडम नंबर। पवन, मैं या तो 2 और 9 भी बोल सकती हूँ कि ये दोनों रिजर्व है, वट एवर इट इज, बट इट इज रिजर्व। नाउ हैव यू अंडरस्टूड व्हाट इज पब्लिक? पब्लिक आईपी एड्रेस क्या है? माय सर्विस प्रोवाइडर विल गिव मी वन आईपी एड्रेस दैट इज गिवन टू माय राउटर व्हिच इज नोन टू हिम, दैट इज पब्लिक. My router will give me one IP address to my mobile, to my laptop, to my iPad, to my another Bluetooth speaker, and so on and so forth. So that means you can say that it is a private. It is reserved. Are you getting? तो पहले जब आपका नेटवर्किंग में पैकेट आएगा तो पहले आपके राउटर पे रूट होता है, राउटर से रूट होके वो आपके डिवाइस पे आता है, बिकॉज राउटर इज अवेयर अबाउट द आईपी एड्रेस अलोकेटेड टू योर डिवाइस. बट राउटर कौन सी आईपी एड्रेस देगा? ऑब्वियसली पब्लिक तो नहीं देगा, वो तो मुझे प्राइवेट दे देगा. अब समझ में आया प्राइवेट एंड पब्लिक का डिफरेंस क्या है? आई हैव गिवन वेरी क्लियर एग्जांपल एंड आई हैव गिवन यू अ प्रॉपर एक्सप्लेनेशन टू. So I've taken a very small example, ये big example है. क्लास B का रेंज ये पूरा है, उसमें से आईना ने डिसाइड किया कि if the router wishes to give you an IP address, the router can give this IP address from this range to this range. अब समझ में आया everyone? So this is class C लिया. क्लास C का प्राइवेट IP रेंज क्या है? रिजर्व प्राइवेट IP एड्रेस. It is from 192 to 168.0.0 से 198, 168, 255, 255. Is it okay? Is it okay? All right. Now, next question comes, when I talk about IP address, it is divided into two parts. One is net ID and another is host ID. Net ID say I can identify that machine as in which network it belongs to. And host ID say I can identify the PC to whom I am belonging to. For example, if I'm saying I am in Sunbeam network, and let us say you belong to OC4 batch, and let us say I'm asking about roll number 20. Now, if I say anywhere OC04 roll number 20, will anyone understand this? Will anyone understand this? Obviously no, right? Because this is not understood by everyone. But if you say now I will go for, I'll just add here a Sunbeam and then I'll say OC420. When you come to the Sunbeam network, then maybe admin office will analyze, okay, OC4 is a Precat batch. Can I say like this? So this is nothing but identifying a network, that is your net ID. समझ में आया कि आप कौन से नेटवर्क से बिलोंग करते हो? Okay, next. If I say 20, there can be hundreds of students. And if I say roll number 20, am I pointing to some specific person or specific host, I can say in network terminology, and that is called as host ID. Have you understood the difference between network ID and host ID? Are you getting everyone? Correct. So, जभी भी when I'm talking about IP address is divided into 4 octets. So from that IP address, it's divided into net ID and the host ID. Because सिर्फ मुझे Sunbeam OC4 बोलूंगी तो मैं पूरे नेटवर्क में किसके साथ बात करनी है? रोल नंबर 20 के साथ. Are you getting? तो मुझे नेटवर्क आईडी भी लगता है और मुझे होस्ट आईडी भी लगता है. Whenever the router routes the packet, whenever the networking devices routes the packet, they search the network ID and the host ID, in which network you belong and in which what host you want to communicate with. Have you understood up to this point? Right. अब IP address is of 32 bits. अब अगर मैं क्लास A की बात करती हूँ तो 8 bits are reserved for network ID. क्लास B में 16 bits are reserved for net ID. Class C में 24 bits are reserved for network ID. Remaining bits are reserved for host ID. Means 24 bits are for host, 16 bits are for host, and 8 bits are for host. यहाँ तक समझ में आया? Everyone. In class A, first 8 bits are net ID, last bits are host ID. In class B, 16 and 16. Class C, this and this. Class D is a multicast address and class E is reserved for future use. They both are not yet used. Now, if I'm saying, let us say I'm considering OC4, okay? Let us say I'm saying the batch capacity for OC04 is 100. Just I'm saying 100 students, assume, right? In that case, क्या मैं 100 अगर बोलती हूँ capacity is of 100, can I accommodate 200 students into it? Obviously no, because my capacity is of 100. Can I say like this? Everyone, are you there? Next, suppose if I'm saying 24 bits are reserved for host, 16 bits are reserved for host. It means what? अगर मैं क्लास C लेती हूँ, if I take a class C, 2 raised to 8 कितना होता है? 256. 2 raised to 16, it is around 65,536. And this is 2 raised to 24. What does that mean? Listen carefully. If I belong to class C, right, the total number of hosts, the total number of machines that I can connect is 255 or 256. So if I ask you, I wish to form a network where I need 150 machines to be connected. I need a requirement. I have a requirement like this. I need to form a network where 150 machines to be connected. अब 150 machines के लिए मैं कौन से क्लास में जा सकती हूँ? I will go for class C. The reason is class C is giving me maximum capacity as a 256. 8 bits are reserved for the hosts, right? Next, if I say 256, अब क्लास C का रेंज क्या है? 223.0.0.0 से 223 और 239.255.255.255. Do you all agree? Everyone? Right. अब suppose मैं customer 1 हूं. My service provider will give me 223.0.0.1 से 223.0.0.255. वो मैक्सिमम रेंज मुझे 255 तक का ही देगा, बिकॉज मेरा रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है? 150. कैन आई ऑक्यूपाई 150 इनटू दिस रेंज? मींस पहला मशीन को आई विल गिव 223.0.0.1, सेकंड मशीन 223.0.0.2, थर्ड मशीन 223.0.0.3 and so on and so forth. Similarly, customer 2 comes to the service provider and he also says that can you please give me, I have a requirement for 200 PCs. तो अब मेरा सर्विस प्रोवाइडर फिर से कौन से क्लास की आईपी एड्रेस देगा मुझे? ऑब्वियसली क्लास बी की देगा, क्लास सी की देगा. तो अगेन दैट पर्सन, उसके पास जो अवेलेबल आईपी एड्रेस रहेगी मे बी 224.0.0.0 से फिर से 224.255.255.255 ऐसे देगा. I'm sorry, it's from 0.0.0 to 255. Are you understanding how it can give, how that person can give me the IP addresses? But now I'm saying my number of machines that I need to connect is 500. अब 500 के लिए मैं कौन सी क्लास के लिए जाऊंगी? Obviously, I will go for class B. फिर से मेरा सर्विस प्रोवाइडर जो मुझे आईपी एड्रेस देगा वो क्लास B के रेंज में से ही देगा. Are you getting the things now? What is host ID and the network ID? So because if it is, जब मैं बोल रही थी कि मुझे क्लास B का नेटवर्क चाहिए, मुझे क्लास C का नेटवर्क चाहिए, it is completely based on the requirement of the customer. जब भी आप किसी भी सर्विस प्रोवाइडर के पास जाओगे and if you say I want to form a network in my office, the first question that person will ask you, how many machines you wish to connect at a time. If you say I wish to go for 150 machines, 100% that person will give you the class C का IP address, which is this. आया समझ में? So for small home networks, always we go for class C. For mid-level organization, जहां पे मुझे पता है कि maximum users at a time 256 से ज्यादा है, 65,000 से कम है, mid-level organizations के लिए we always go for class B. And for higher level organization, जहां पे number of employees, number of customers, number of users are more than 66,000, let us say, I will definitely go for class A. हर एक class के IP address allotment का obviously cost भी vary होगा, and accordingly it will go ahead. So did you understand how and why the IP addresses are given? Everyone. That's why your Google IP starts with 120. The reason is 120 is the class A. Google is a very big organization where lakhs of employees works, and or maybe thousands of employees works, maybe more than 65,000. Okay. Right, Haniraj, that is the job of your networking device. Network ID and host ID. Suppose मैं बोलती हूँ, I'm giving a short example because you can just consider. Suppose I'm saying I have got the IP address maybe 224.0.0.1, 224.0.0.255. ऐसा मुझे रेंज मिला है. This is class C. अब class C में ये हो गया मेरा फिक्स्ड 24 बिट्स विच इज फॉर नेट आईडी एंड रिमेनिंग बिट्स आर फॉर द होस्ट आईडी. तो अगर मैं बोलती हूँ कि फ्रॉम दिस आईपी एड्रेस कैन यू प्लीज टेल मी व्हाट इज नेट आईडी, सिंस इट इज क्लास सी तो इसका नेट आईडी क्या रहेगा? फर्स्ट 3 ऑक्टेट्स आर रिजर्व्ड. आर यू गेटिंग? And if I ask you, can you please give me the host ID? तो आप क्या बोलोगे? Host ID for the first machine is 224.0.0, 224.0.0.1, again 224.0.0.2, again 224.0.0.3, and so on and so forth. It will end at 224.0.0.255. I hope you have understood. Means in this case, every time this byte is reserved, which is treated as net ID, and this host ID will uniquely identify that each host into that network. Have you understood, everyone? All right. So this is basically 1 or 2 questions that I've included. कि कौन सा IP address public है, कौन सा private है. You just have to remember the addresses. Or maybe if I say I wish to connect 200 device, I'll go for class C. 3,000 device, I'll go for class B. 5,000, 50,000, class B. 2 lakh devices, class A. Have you understood what is basically IP address introduction? All right, good. Now, let us say, so this was about the IP addresses. We will see something called as protocol now. Just give me a moment. So I hope you have understood the concept of IP addresses, the introduction part, right? We will go ahead to something called as protocol. Now, when you talk about protocol or the standards, they are basically used to define the format and the order of messages sent and received among the network. When you say protocol, it means there are some rules that we need to follow. The reason behind protocol is because you are using different configured machine. I am using different configured machine. Maybe I have Dell laptop, I have Mac laptop, you have HP laptop. Again, you are using different kind of hard disk, you are using different kind of RAM, capacity of your hard disk vary, my capacity of hard disk vary. Maybe am I using different NIC card of different company, you are using different NIC card. So there can be variations of hardware and softwares which are there, right? So if we do not follow the protocols, in that case, you will not be able to communicate properly. And that's the reason we have to follow some standards and the protocols for being into the network. Now, there are different standard organizations, right? And these organizations are basically called as International Standard Organization called as ISO, International Telecommunication Union called as ITU, American National Standard Institute called as ANSI, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers called as IEEE. ये सारे organizations या committees है, they decide these standards. For example, when you wish to say I want to find out how much weight this product is, so normally you carry a weight with the help of kilograms, grams, and so on. So these are the standards. And why we take that as a standard? Because it is universally accepted. If you want to measure the liquid, you will go for liters. So that is the standard, and the standards helps us to basically maintain the uniformity over the universe, right? Similarly, ISO is an international standard organization which have given us the standard for the network model, and that is called as OSI model. OSI stands for Open System Interconnection Model. OSI model is basically used as for network communication. जैसे आप liters के लिए आपको पता है it is for liquid. When you say kilograms, it is for weight. When you say gram, it is for weight. When you talk about other maybe standards which are basically designed by some organization or standard committees, when you talk about networks, they are basically called as OSI model. So it is a generic, you can say, open system interconnection model, and this is designed, or this is given by organization called as ISO organization, International Standard Organization. Have you understood up to this point? So what does this open indicates? It denotes you are able to connect any DO system which confirms the reference model and the associate standard. For example, you take a connector, जो आप twisted pair का connector लेते हो, आप कॉलेज में जाते हो तो भी आपको वही साइज का कनेक्टर दिखता है. When you go to office, you have the same type of connector. That means they have defined the standards, standard size, standard structure, some standards, so that you are able to communicate, you are able to perform the operation, right? And that is why we are basically conforming, we are accepting that whenever I am designing any network model, I have followed which type of model, that is open system interconnection model, kind of accepting the agreement. I'm kind of following the some standards, right? So OSI is the name of the standard, ISO is the name of the organization. This full forms are asked in your CCAT exams. Now, OSI is having 7 layers. I'll give you the example of all this. First of all, let me explain one example. Then we will see all these and we will see the PPT slides. Suppose I wish to send an email. Can I send a mail from Chrome? Everyone? Yes. So I will open the first Chrome browser. That is called as application. Application layer is basically helping me to allow the network resources. So when you talk about when I want to initiate the application, when I want to initiate the networks, in that case, I have to start including the application, some of the application for it. Next, suppose मैंने Gmail open किया. In that case, आप Gmail के through, let us say, you can just send document, you can send zip file, you can just perform any encrypted document, you can send a signature and so on. That means when you try to send an email, you are presenting some content, maybe the text, maybe the image, maybe the document. तो जब मैं content की बात करती हूँ, that job is done by presentation layer. So it is used to translate, encrypt, and compress the data. Next, when you hit a correct, let us say मैंने अभी email ID भी डाल दिया, and if I press send button, in that case, a connection is maintained, and that is called as session layer. So what is the session layer responsible for? It is responsible for establishing and managing and terminating the session, right? Next, if I say I have written correct email ID, I have written an email ID, I have added some content, I have sent button. But कभी-कभी आपको याद है क्या ऐसा मैसेज आता है कि mail delivery failure error? Have you ever received this? Yes, it is because you have not entered the correct email ID. The router is unable to find that email address to whom you want to address. So the most important layer of OSI layer is transport layer, which uses for process to process delivery and the error recovery. Next, suppose a mail bhi chala gaya. If I'm saying I wish to send the mail to the same network, then there is no need of network layer. But if I'm saying I'm transmitting my data from one network to another, then network layer comes into picture. Right? So to move the packets from source to destination and to provide an inter-networking, network layer come into picture. Later on, आपको याद है क्या कल मैंने आपको MAC frames बताए थे, Ethernet frames, 1500 bytes. Right? जब मेरा डेटा Ethernet network से जाता है, it is divided into number of frames, that is number of packets. That job is done by your data link layer. It is used to organize bits into frames. It is used to provide hop-to-hop delivery, means one machine to another machine. When the packet moves, the exact framing division is done by data link layer. And finally, do you remember today I have explained the device called as hub, which transmits the data in the form of electrical signal. आपका twisted pair wires रहती है, आपके पास coaxial cable रहता है, आपके physical devices रहते हैं, connectors रहते हैं. तो जो भी physical devices की बात आती है, and when the data moves from source to destination in the form of raw bits, right? Maybe in the form of bytes, that job is done by physical layer. Have you understood the job of each and every layer? तो अगर मैं Chrome browser open ही नहीं करती थी तो क्या मेरा data transmit होता था? Obviously no. That means every layer has to perform its own job in the same sequence which I have mentioned. The layers cannot be interchanged. First layer, if that have performed its job, then only second layer will be able to do its job properly. That is called as OSI layer. So in your exam, the question can be asked as, if I want to go for process to process delivery, which layer is responsible for that? That's a transport layer. If I want to manage sessions, then which layer is responsible? Session layer. If I want to move the packets from source to destination, then network layer. Dividing the data into smaller frames, then data link layer. Transmit the data in the form of bits, electromagnetic waves, signals, and so on. That's the job of physical layer. So this is one line description of all the layers. समझ में आया यहाँ तक? Everyone. Right. Now, when you talk about OSI layer, I have included little bit theory about all the layers. For example, I've explained what is HTTP. It's a hypertext transfer protocol which is having port number 20. तो ये जो protocols है वो कौन से layer में आते हैं? वो application layer में आते हैं. So these numbers, you in case of networks, you have to remember few numbers. For example, once it was asked, SSH का port number क्या है? That is 22. So if you talk about browser, application windows, electronic mail, remote login, ये सब किसके अंडर आते हैं? They comes under the layer which is called as application layer, right? Second layer is presentation layer. When I am specifically talking about type of the content, maybe it is a text file, maybe it is document, zip file, and so on, audio, video, then who is responsible for that? Presentation layer. Translation, maybe converting your code into binary data, maybe compressing the data, zip files, unzipping file, encryption, decryption, all these jobs are done by which layer? By the presentation layer. तो हर एक स्लाइड में जो भी लेयर है उसके ड्यूटीज क्या क्या है, I have included in those slides. Next is session layer. To start and manage and terminate the session. When you, let us say when you use chat box, right, or when you use any messenger app, then in that case, if you are communicating, maintaining that dialogue controller. If I'm sending hi, then you will receive the hi message only. When you say good morning, then I will receive that message only. So it is like it should be a synchronized way whenever two people or maybe two windows are communicating with each other. So end-to-end synchronization or synchronization between two machines can be maintained by session layer, because session is maintained for maintaining that communication, right? If my connection get lost in between, so obviously I will not be able to receive the messages. But next time when I log in, तो मुझे first वाला message नहीं मिलता है, जो last वाला message नहीं मिला वहां से मिलता है. So who does that in background? That is nothing but the job of session layer. Every layer is having its own protocols. Every layer does its job by performing the protocols in the backend. जैसे सेशन लेयर के लिए सेशन इनिशिएशन प्रोटोकॉल है, याद है राउटिंग के लिए राउटिंग इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोटोकॉल था, बॉर्डर गेटवे प्रोटोकॉल था. सिमिलरली सेशन लेयर के ये प्रोटोकॉल्स है. सो यू कैन हैव एनी नंबर ऑफ you can say combination of protocols in different layers. Similarly, the transport layer is the most important layer. Transport layer divides the data in the form of segments. Transport layer के दो major, you can say the two major protocols are there. One is basically TCP, another is UDP. Transport layer is responsible for end-to-end delivery. I've included in transport layer, you have end-to-end delivery, you have addressing, means कौन से date, कहाँ पे मुझे data send करना है, reliable delivery, flow control, and multiplexing. I hope you remember multiplexing, demultiplexing concept. कल हमने FDM and TDM देखा था. हमने process देखा, but वो job, which layer performs that job, that is a job which is done by your transport layer. The two major protocols that your transport layer uses is TCP and UDP. Let me take a correct example over here. Suppose I'm sending an email to you. If I add 10 lines and if I add document, will you receive the email as it is? Everyone? Yes. Is there any data loss in between of email? ऐसा कभी होता है क्या कि टेक्स्ट खुद से ही गुम हो जाता है? Never. That means if I talk about 100% delivery of data, then I will go for TCP protocol. So email is the best example of TCP. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. It is basically accurate data delivery in the same format in which you have sent. There is no loss of data in case of TCP. It is more better, but it takes little time. But let us take another example. While watching online games, right? Or while watching video streaming, or while watching live matches, in that case, अगर आपको fraction of data, fraction of second के लिए jitter आ गया, delay आया, तो वो मुझे इतना फर्क पड़ेगा क्या? It hardly matters for me, right? The reason is, if for fraction of second, if there is a data loss, then in that case, it is absolutely fine for me. That means what I just want fast data to be captured, and that is called as UDP. UDP is connection-less protocol. They do not provide error checking. एक बार packet loss हुआ तो loss हो गया. It will go ahead. But in case of TCP, कभी भी ऐसे नहीं चलेगा कि हाँ बीच में characters गुम हो गए या क्या हो गया and so on. Have you understood transport layer protocols? One is TCP, another is UDP. So connection-less protocol, connection-oriented protocol. These are the two major protocols which comes under the transport layer. Next is network layer. As I said, do you remember network layer में हमारा router आता है? When I'm talking about network, I'm talking about IP address. When we talk about IP address, it is logical address. Logical address assignment किसका रहता है? Router का रहता है. So if you talk about router, कौन से network में, कौन से layer में आता है? That comes under the network layer. This layer is responsible for source to destination delivery of packets. Right? Network layer consists of data, consists of some IP address, consists of destination IP address. So routing, logical addressing, internetworking, all these are the phases of network layer. Some of the protocols that I have included. I hope you remember ARP, address resolution protocol, which converts your IP to MAC and MAC to IP. So can I say I am able to basically link IP address with the network layer? जब network layer की बात आती है, तो I'm talking about router. So second type of question that can be asked over here is, routers comes under which category? Answer is network layer category, or they belong to network layer. Similarly, when you talk about data link layer, I am talking about dividing the data in the form of frames. जब मैं frames की बात करती हूँ, I hope you remember the frame structure, which was having source MAC address, destination MAC address. Do you remember? Source MAC address, destination MAC address, then start of the frame limit, then sequence number, and so on. Am I talking about physical address? More on physical address? Yes, that's the reason we can say data link layer responsible for source MAC address, destination MAC address, breaking the data into the frames, physical addressing, NIC card, ये सारे जो linking वाले topics है, right? They all comes under the data link layer. Also, if you talk about switch, do you remember routing table में मैंने कहा था switch will hold the IP and the MAC address of that particular device, right? So switch comes under which category of the layer? Answer is data link layer, right? As far as your exam is concerned, basic operations are basically asked based on this 7-layer model. Physical layer, NIC cards, cables, hubs, repeaters, connectors, physical transmission of information is done by the physical layer. They covers all the mechanical, electrical, functional, and procedural aspects. They sends the data in the form of ones and zeros, clock synchronization, and so on. Everything is done by physical layer, right? So these are the 7 layers, out of which I have included this slide. जब मेरा डेटा एप्लीकेशन लेयर से नेक्स्ट लेयर में जाता है, उस पैकेट को हम बोलते हैं डेटा. When the data goes from presentation to the session, that packet is called as again data. When the data moves from session layer to the transport layer, that packet is called as segment. When the network layer transmits your data, that packet is called as a packet. When the data link layer divides the packet into frames, then that is called as frame. And finally, your physical layer works with or deals with the data called as bits. So what is PDU? PDU stands for Protocol Data Unit, at which layer there are different conventions which are available into it. On the right hand side, I've just included few protocols. For example, network ke liye there is IP protocol, ICMP protocol, and so on. So you can refer this one-page slide, which refers all the protocols, the duties performed by them, and what are the data units of these 7 OSI models. Now, we have seen OSI model, right? OSI is the standard. Now, if I ask you, can you see kilogram? Can you see kilogram? Can you see that standard? You can see kilogram, Ankit? No, you cannot. You can measure it, right? You can measure it with some product or something like that, right? So the standards are available for us. We cannot see them. We represent them, correct? Or we try to use them such that we can represent them. Similarly, OSI is the standard, which is a generic model, which is the available model for me. They are the reference model. But when they have tried to develop the internals of OSI model, they have renamed them as a TCP/IP model. So what is TCP/IP? It is a practical implementation of OSI model. So if you talk about OSI, it has 7 layers. But while implementing, while following that protocols, while following that standards, they have divided this as a TCP conceptual layers. All the above 3 layers are combined into one and given a name as application layer. This transport layer is given as transport. This network layer is given as network. This data and physical layer is given as network interface layer. So OSI is a reference model. TCP/IP is a conceptual model. You can say that it is the practical implementation of OSI. All right. So this is about the logical addressing and OSI model, right? So with this, I will stop for the day and I will stop. So good afternoon, everyone. Let us continue with day 3 of data communication and networks and computer fundamentals. So I hope you all have seen that we have seen the basic physical devices or physical requirement for formation of a network. Now we will go ahead when we talk about a networking device or inter-networking device. Now, for example, when you wish to talk about a networking device, if I assume I'm saying I have a SIM card, right? And I have a proper balance into that SIM card. Also, I have taken a proper that card from some service provider. But if I do not have a mobile device, then I will not be able